Well, Kirk, this is our final episode of the year, and we've been going for about 75 episodes now.
Incredible.
On Lessons from Last Time. What we want to do is give you a wrap up here at the end of the year. And give you some clips from some of our favorite moments on the podcast. And we launched this podcast in the beginning of 23. It's been going strong for 2 years.
Wow.
We release an episode every other week, and it's really grown from, what were the things in 08 that mortgage people struggled with, and how do we get through those things now to, we realize there's actual real problems out there.
Bigger than the mortgage business.
And mortgage is a temporary problem, and then it's a temporary awesome, then it's a temporary problem. That's the way it goes. But people go through real life crisis and struggles, and we've been able to pull those stories out and give those to you as a gift to be able to grow through your experience and to be able to share with other people so that they can grow through their experiences.
Unless we sound too magnanimous, we receive those as a gift too. It's incredible to sit in studio, those people who are sharing their stories. I believe it's accurately attributed to Walt Disney, who said sometimes the best thing in life is to get your teeth kicked in. And I presume that was metaphorically speaking, not literally speaking. But the idea is there's story after story on the podcast in these last 75 episodes of people who have gotten their teeth kicked in and have found a way to keep moving forward, found a way, whether it's in their business or in their personal life or a battle with a disease or a battle with a situation with a child, or, countless stories that have been shared with us in this really incredibly intimate setting where people have shed tears and laughed and shared their story. And it's just profoundly meaningful to engage in those stories.
A couple things we want you to do is as you watch these clips, if you see one that really rings true for you or that just kind of hits you in a way, go back and watch the full episode and check that out. And then if you see something that you think, oh gosh, so-and-so needs to hear that, definitely forward that episode out. We don't get paid from this podcast.
No.
There's no advertising in this podcast. It literally is just us trying to bring stories to you so that you can grow and really try to attach that, wait a second, that person made it through, then maybe I can too, and maybe I can use those skills. And then the other thing is, as you watch our podcast, every single episode at the end of it, we say, how can somebody get a hold of you if they want to? And every one of our guests on the podcast has shared their contact information. Yeah. And so I would encourage you as you watch these, if you do see one that you go, oh my gosh, that's huge, I do want to reach out to that person. That's real. They really do put it out there so that you can follow them, but also so you can message them and say, tell them the power that you got from watching it, tell them the impact that they've made. In fact, below this video, as you watch these, feel free to jot down or comment below and just put this is what I grew throughout the year from this podcast, or this is what impacted me the most. Let's get some of those great stories out there. Yeah,
that would be fantastic. And, you're going to, as you surf through these episodes, you'll see some names you probably recognize, people that are highly placed in the industry, and you'll see some names you probably don't recognize. Regardless of their position, status, or title, people shared intensely from their heart without failure. The stories are different and the anecdotes are different, but it's been incredible to sit in that studio and benefit from people's generosity of time and willingness to be transparent and share real stories from their life. I think you'll find that it's incredibly rewarding, and I hope you do take Ken up on that ask. Just make a comment, send it out to your socials. We'd love to hear feedback on how these episodes have affected you.
Yeah, I will tell you as you go back, if you have ADHD or have a loved one with ADHD, a lot of our conversations
or work with someone
up,
with
yeah, maybe you do. A lot of the conversations end up, talking about how we've, managed through a difficult time at work, being ADHD, or Sarah Keller talking about her, going to school and struggling in school with her ADHD, or Heather Radu, who is she created Forever Changed International. We go to Guatemala under her nonprofit, and her sharing her dropping out of high school and then still creating this thing that's changed so many lives, literally called Forever Changed. Those stories, non-mortgage related and totally awesome.
Yeah, there's one more connection I'd make with the podcast that just came to mind, and we do offer people's contact information, and they're very generous with their time when people do follow up with them. But the very final thing we do in every podcast episode, I don't know if I can share this or not, or without getting in trouble.
I think you can. I think it's okay.
Ken always asks this final question, and it's basically, if you could go back to talk to 10 or 12 or 14-year-old you, with everything that you've learned in life, all the challenges you've overcome and the times you've gotten your teeth kicked in, if you could go talk to yourself as a child on the playground or wherever, and you could give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be? And I would just say in those comments, If you watch some of these episodes and you're drawn to, man, I wish I'd known that when I was 10 or 12, leave us a comment about what you would have told yourself at 10 or 12 or 14. I think that would be a really cool way to kind of put a bow around the work we've done in studio for the podcast in this past year.
Yeah. Well, stay tuned for tons in 2025. But before we get to 2025, definitely watch these clips, dive in, and listen and subscribe to the podcast.
Absolutely. And thank you for allowing us to be part of your experience online with the Knowledge Coop.
It's been awesome.
I mean, this was a long butt kicking, you know, I mean, 8, 9, 10, and 11. I had 4 years of constant, every time I got up, I got smacked back down, you know, and just kept getting up, kept getting smacked down, kept getting up, kept getting smacked down. And there were days I didn't want to get out of bed. I just didn't want to get out of bed. I'm like, what's the point?
Right.
You know, what's the point? But I did it anyway, you know, I did it anyway. It's just one of those, I just had to. I can't quit. I don't lose until I quit, right? If I'm still in the game, even if I'm getting my butt kicked every single day, I'm still playing the game, which means I have a chance to win.
Yeah.
So I just didn't quit. I just kept telling myself that, just go, just today, just today. It's an AA thing, you know, the one day at a time. I mean, I really got into 1 hour, 1 minute, 1 second at a time sometimes. It was like everything sucked, but I had no choice. I got this kid. She didn't ask for any of this nonsense, right? So she's my responsibility. I've got to find a way to provide. And, you know, I had a good upbringing. I mean, my parents put good ethics and morals in me, and, you know, they did a really good job with me and my brother, and I just kept fighting.
Amazing relationships. And because of that vulnerability and that transparency, I've been able to build some of those relationships back too. And that's like in any relationship. If I break your heart, hopefully you got it within yourself that if I prove myself in such a way and am on, you know, we all should have grace and forgive, but you should see, people should have to prove it too. So, you know, whether you're or not you want to forgive me right now, yeah, I'll prove it back, you know, and this is what you're going to see, the body of work that I want you to see.
You said something on our call, be a human people want to connect with. And that speaks to what you're talking about right now is if you've broken your relationship with Ken somehow, you've done something, said something hurtful, whatever, but you maintain that consistency of being a human that people want to connect with. Eventually, Ken, if he's a human that people want to connect with, there's going to be opportunity for grace to transcend whatever injury occurred.
Well, and the cool thing is think about what you guys have here. No one really wants to sit down and watch or go to continuing education. You guys have made it you guys have pushed a wave of creativity and fun within something that is kind of dry and not cool. And you guys have now put that in a light of excitement and what's next. And, you know, now when I'm watching the stuff, I see there's a human behind that. There is a connection there. And before I ever met Ken, I felt connected to him, right? Or to the people that are here, you know, that have fun personalities, and that, you know, it was just it's a creative twist. And that's what I want to do in my business too, is I don't want to be like every other loan officer. I want to be unique and distinguish myself from other loan officers or other people in business, or, you know, whatever that looks like. So it was vital for me to recreate myself, but also be creative within that.
My job is to be in your corner. It's very much like a boxing trainer who's in the corner. I'm in your corner. I can't step into that ring with you. All I can do is prepare you for the type of opponent you're going to face and the skills that you have in order to defeat that opponent. If I do my job of preparing for you for that, I'm in your corner, and I'm always in your corner, even if we're not in that active coaching relationship. I'm once we sign up, unless one of us dies, I'm always in your corner.
Huge lesson from last time, from all of your experiences. What I'm hearing you say is, don't be afraid of going back and finding those places that have caused a lot of the pain. Take the power away from those by bringing them, or by going back to them, dealing with them, and then coming forward and going, I've been through a lot, you know, nothing's going to be worse than that, and going from there.
I think that's a lovely way to put it. It's when you know how to heal your heart, getting a heartbreak is not as terrifying anymore. And heartbreaks are, for me, one of the hardest things. And heartbreaks doesn't need to come from a relationship, but there's a lot of things that break our heart in the world that we live in. So once you know how to mend the broken heart, it's like, oh, okay, I think I can navigate whatever's showing up.
So I really wanted to create a company, which I did, Rewire, around the idea of could we pursue long-term sustainable change in people? And we're still pursuing it. But it's extremely difficult. If you're in the mortgage space, yeah, you need to know how to calculate self-employed income. You need to understand, the things that you guys teach and bring to the table. There are technical things. So the question is, your success as a leader or a producer or an owner, whatever it is, how much of it is technical versus how much is adaptive mindset? Because some of the greatest athletes, and I save all these videos. Golf's one of the things that I like a lot, but I just recently watched a Cameron McCormick video. He's Jordan Spieth's coach.
Okay.
He did this whole thing about Spieth's working on this and the technical stuff. But at the end of the day, 80% of their work together is mindset.
Fascinating.
And most athletes know that. I mean, listen to Kobe, listen to, when he used to talk and all these other athletes, listen to great baseball players. Are there technical things? Yes. Do we need to understand how to do this business better technically and take a better application and do all the things technically that we know we need to do? Yeah. How much of it, especially in the last lessons from last time? What are we learning? How are we adapting to this? These are adaptive changes. You own this company and you started this company that's inextricably tied to mortgage banking. It's been the hardest year and a half. Let me ask you a question. Is your identity this?
It was. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want your identity to be this?
No, that's the work we've been doing is pulling myself out of that.
Right.
She caught me
So to
one time.
know that is your identity, because
Yeah.
when you realize your identity isn't that, then what the heck do you care what's happening in the mortgage business?
Yeah.
Now we have to be aware of it. It's been the hardest, which is by implication, therefore going to impact you because your identity was so linked to whether or not interest rates went to 7 or whatever. We all have a lot of narratives. I mean, the Neuro Leadership Institute, David Rock would tell you in his research that most of us live close to 90% of our lives in narrative circuitry. Only 10% of life, according to Rock's studies, is what's actually happening. The other 90% is what we narrate what's happening. And so if we don't look at the power of narrative, right? And this is how back to athletes, like these golfers, that's why Cameron McCormick they're not taught. Yes, there are some skills they got to learn. But you want to get really great at that, just like you want to get really good at business. Let's start paying attention to what our narratives are.
Immersing your kids in with others are things that you can do to be able to have them learn. But I did that with him, and it helped him a lot. So I think those are some of the lessons that they can bring. I went to this conference, and I say this at every conference. Let me be open to the people that I am to meet, and let them be open to meeting me, because you never know who you're to meet. It's like, I'm going to bring you along, but if you're not going to come, I'm going anyway. And I think that's kind of the mentality you have to have with yourself, and be okay with that. Say, you know what? Okay, so you don't want to do that. That's your decision. And very much when Trey, we were business owners, and I said, you need to go find a job. This is not going to work. We're going to be maybe, 2 years down the road, it'll come back. Maybe something else will happen, but this is not working. You need to get out of the foxhole. We are being fired upon, and there is nothing to do but leave.
Or be crippled by fear.
And if you're crippled by fear,
You die.
you die.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean,
So
it's
get out of the foxhole.
get out of the foxhole.
Shift hard, shift fast.
And if you find someone that is crippled, then help them out.
Absolutely.
But also know, if they're not willing to move, you have to take care of yourself. And I think that's probably where a lot of people are, where they're like, but I've got this team, or I've got this, or, it's like, but I've been doing this for so long.
Or to Ken's point, the Fed's going to come through and start quantitative easing again.
Yeah,
we're
we're
going to
gonna
buy
be
all these
fine,
bonds and
and-
rates are going to
right.
get better. We'll have a refi boom again.
And then I'll work.
This is the market you have right now.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Rates are 8 or whatever they are right now, 7.5%. They might go down. They also might go up. We've seen 18 before, right?
Bought our
Adapt.
first house at that.
Yeah.
Adapt.
But it's like sitting in the foxhole going,
It's
I bet
exactly
they'll
right.
stop shooting.
Yeah.
I bet
they're going to
they'll-
run out of
yeah,
bullets soon.
yeah.
They're going to
It'll
run
be
out of
dark
bullets
soon,
soon.
and they'll stop.
Yeah.
They probably don't have a mortar.
Yeah.
Right. So you just bounce. You just bounce quickly and you invest.
That's the shift hard, shift fast.
Yeah.
I ended up hurting myself so dramatically that a couple years ago, I actually had what you would call almost a nervous breakdown where I went into such a dark place that I can't even put words to it. I wish I could, but people out there that are listening today or watching that have been there, they know what I'm talking about. It's a terrible, terrible place. It's like you get it on you and you can't get it off of you. And it's just awful. I mean, for a guy that always had such a positive, upbeat, faith-filled life, to be in such a dark spot, it was so bizarre. And so I seeked out help, even though I'm a man, and that's one of the reasons I do a lot of these podcasts, because, men, they believe we can get through it. We're tough. And in the state of Wyoming, the suicide rate is enormous, and as far as men, it's almost double what it is for women, and that's because, again, they're not seeking the help out. They're not reaching out. They're not saying, I got to do something about this. I got to either get in therapy or maybe take some medicines, or I mean, and that's what happened to me. And I was hurting so bad that I finally just said, I can't do this. I've got 2 girls at home. At this time, I'm sorry, I had 3 now. And my wife, again, like you said, leaning on her. And I seek some help. I got some help and I started walking that journey.
We have this social media thing that just shows everybody, well, gosh, all these people, all these peers, they're going off to college and they're doing all these things with college. And I have to think to myself, what would have it been like for me if I would have had that social pressure to measure up, right? Like, my God, I knew my best friend Courtney was going to go to a private school and private university, and she had this big, thick book back then that she could open up, and she said, Heather, look at it. She kept trying to get me to want to go to college. And I go, Courtney, why would I go to college? I hate school. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. And yet I've watched so many, my own kids, other kids that I know that did not like school. That was not their thing. They feel so pressured and almost ostracized if they don't fit in the box to go off to college. And that's troubling.
It's the relentless pressure of
Yeah.
normal. And one of
It's
the really cool
yeah.
things you said in our phone conversation was, it took me a while to figure out, I viewed myself as not quite normal. And then
No.
I figured out there's no such thing as normal.
No,
We just allow ourselves to get boxed into what somebody else has
Absolutely.
decided is normal.
absolutely. So yeah, I do agree with that 100%.
And the other funny thing is you scored so high you actually could get into PSU.
could've, yeah.
So Mindy likes to say it's not attention deficit, it's attention inconsistency. Like
Yeah.
I can have massive attention,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I can hyper focus. And if
Yeah.
you give me a project,
Yeah.
I'll spend 4 hours staring at something. I just don't want to, do that all the time. It's just whenever I have to, of course I'll rise to
Oh,
the occasion,
absolutely.
but it's not in your box. I do not fit. I'm not,
Mm-mm.
but if I can create my own journey, then I totally can.
Yeah, totally.
I said, guys, I want you to clock in for 40, even if you're not here for 40. As long as you kick effing A while you're here, everything's good. So then I shortened it to KFA so I wouldn't be cussing. And it turned into it was kind of a rally cry at that point. Everybody's like, yeah, KFA. And then we started ending all of our meetings saying KFA, KFA. So now every time we end a pipeline meeting or a sales training or whatever, it's KFA. That's our exit. And so they got that for me one day. And so we were sitting there talking about it. And it's like, why don't we put on a summit? Let's just bring in people. Let's get the atmosphere. Let's just throw something together.
There is no playbook. There's another thing for everybody. You get a promotion or you do whatever and you take something over and you think, okay, I've got a map. There is no map. There is no playbook. And when I got there thinking, all right, I'm going to start from a level 7 and take it to a 10. No. I realized, no, I got to go back to like 2. And so in that moment, that struggle, that enormity, that pressure, I just moved my family here. Holy crap. And again, like we were talking about earlier, very excited, motivating. And then within 3 months, oh crap, what have I gotten myself into? The struggle, the pain, the enormity, the stress, the pressure. And that's where I developed my leadership voice. And that was another defining moment. And it was some of the best times in my career because how I was able to rise out of that, rebuild our operation. And I famously said, after I rebuilt it, defying other cynics about you can't do it like that, I said, yes, I can. And I did it. And I remember I increased the velocity of loans by like 3 to 4 business days purely out of fixing the production of that loan, not hiring people. In fact, I was able to do more with less because I adapted to technology. I got rid of waste. And waste is in those 2 to 3 minute cycles, not 20 minutes. I got rid of all those 2 to 5 minute things. Do this, do that. No, we don't have to do any of that. You are empowered to make that decision.
It's always fun when somebody's like, "What's wrong with your nag?"
I didn't say it that way. I said, I've never noticed that.
That is true. You did say
Yeah. How did I? So you went
I don't know
through,
how you didn't know.
You didn't put it on Facebook. I don't think you texted me. Did you?
I didn't text you. No, I didn't tell anybody. The only my significant other at the time took a picture of me after she took me to radiation like 2 times the whole time, and one of the times she posted it that I was halfway through, and everybody blew up. Like, wait, what? Because I didn't really want anybody to know. I know it sounds weird, but I don't know why. I knew it wasn't going to kill me. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I got a tonsil cancer, and I had one lip node in my throat that had cancer in it. And so we had to have surgery, which is they do a neck dissection and took out 28 lymph nodes and then took out both my tonsils.
Wow.
And then had to do 6 weeks of radiation after that. So,
man, and you didn't want to make a big deal for anybody else to know about it, or to...
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. I just didn't want to. Yeah.
You were just,
I knew
you
it wasn't
were at
going to
war.
kill
You're
me.
like, I'm going to go fight this thing. And then, but you knew from the beginning it was.
Yeah, I don't know. I just had a peace about it. It just, for me, I knew it wasn't my time. I knew I had more things to accomplish in my life. Mm-hmm. For better or worse, I just knew that God wasn't telling me, all right, make your final plans.
Get ready.
Yeah.
I just knew that I was going to beat it, and the surgeon was great. He made it. He felt really confident that he got it all. But we're going to make you do this radiation just to make sure. I didn't have to do chemo. If the lymph node would have been, the lymph node was 3 centimeters. If it would have been 3 centimeters, 0.01, they would have made me do chemo.
Whoa.
Yeah. So luckily I didn't have to do the chemo part, because that really knocks you out. But radiation is bad enough because they take this plastic mold. They make this mold that goes over your shoulders and over your face. So every time you go, they can get the radiation in the same spot. So they bolt your head to the table.
They bolt your head to like strap it or bolt it?
No, they take this mold and they put it on the table and they snap it down.
What fueled me to start building champions was that I was super interested in helping people to be successful, not just in business, but in life. When I was a branch manager, I wanted to help people, and I helped them to rid themselves of nasty addictions. So some of them came into my branch and they had the white powder addiction, they had the boozy addiction. I saw some of them go from Playboy lifestyle to getting to stand with them as they got married, and now they're fathers and mothers. And so I got to see that. What I was exposed to when I was in my 20s wasn't all that attractive to me. So I saw the really nice fancy cars and the big estates. And then I saw some of the wreckage that went along with it.
Unintended consequences.
Oh, I saw it. I saw leaders who had mistresses, and you knew their mistress more so than their bride. Their kids hated them. You saw marriage number 3, marriage number 4, but you had, all of the wealth. You probably had half of it, but but or less than that. But I saw all of that carnage, and I was like, I don't want to participate in that, nor do I want to breed that. So I want you to understand the meaning of building champions, because often people think, oh, cool company name or cheesy company name because, oh, you build champions, like we are the champions and you're a winner. But that's one type of a champion. There's another type of a champion, and that is to champion a cause. That's the building champions. I want to build leaders who are going to champion a cause where you create a culture that brings life instead of destroys life.
I think just that drive of you need, whatever you're doing, you should be the best at it. And, my coworkers, I don't know my own lane. Like, yep, I run ops and fulfillment, but I want to learn about secondary. And so, Steve Majerus, went through the MBA, secondary market, cap markets, all of those courses. Okay, Steve, don't just tell me this is how we do it. Tell me why we do it.
I think all along the way you learn things that are invaluable. And, the best thing was have a plan. Don't set your expectations too low. Make them as high as you can and then higher, and work to execute them every day and get buy-in from everybody. And the people that work for you are going to be happier. They're going to feel like they're contributing in a way that's meaningful. And who knows what'll happen.
And then I got licensed, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to go build my business. Like, my mom's so good at coaching other loan officers. She's going to help me so much.
And she bought a van.
Well, she bought a van. She replaced me with a golden retriever. And she's
so
like...
sweet, though. That golden
Really
retriever.
cute golden retriever.
Yeah.
He's my sibling. So he's the favorite
I
child.
almost brought him today.
But
Oh
the
my gosh.
other thing is, and you coach at Guild, like you're great at coaching other loan officers. But when I was like, how did you do it? Your answer to me was, I don't know, I just did it. And I'm like,
Oh my gosh. The gems she was dropping on you right there.
I
So
just did it.
helpful.
And
You should get in coaching.
I figured it out that, that people were just, insuring everything, were getting PMI or whatever they had. That was just, the fry cook that makes 25,000 a month. It doesn't, can't put that down there and be thing. And I think that the business volume just drove it to be bad. And I think, in a way, if Fannie and Freddie hadn't held on and everything, we'd have an even messier market than we do now. I mean, it's on its way back, and there are certainly some new programs that I've heard about that seem thoughtful but it's a mortgage is really based on how it performs, and whether you can make the payment or not doesn't make any difference. If you get your money from her sister, it's the delinquency, and as that delinquency runs up, it seems to come in bunches, and people are laid off or whatever. It's business that is difficult to handle, and I think there's a lot of you guys are if you were around, you'd make $1 million a month or a week back then, because probably could have brought the business back some by giving certain investors like Westinghouse or Ford credit, or somebody that had a lot of bucks, okay, and we're looking for a return, and they would, if it was done that way with the proper training and the thing. I mean, there weren't any rules back in the early days. I mean, there was a UCC filing and a credit app, and then it's sort of a half-page mortgage. It's just like IOU, and that's against this property, and 3-day waiting period, unless they spiked the deal, and it was no one.
But there was focus on the individual transaction and determination made, and as all of our products have become commoditized, and certainly through those, till the blow up of subprime, I mean, it became digitalized, and just nobody was looking at anything in the end, and performance didn't end up being as bad as it could have been, but yeah, it was very different back, when you're counting credit card lates and amount of collections and mortgage lates for sure, and doing all that. That's just out the window. I mean, that's out the window on agency and government too. It's a AUS system.
Honestly, the most lessons I've learned about life and leadership has been from being a parent. So
You know,
Of course.
I actually told Lindsay called me this morning. One of my daughters is in Florence at NYU, and our times are different. So, her evening is my morning. So she calls me every morning, and I told her about doing this podcast, and she's like, "What's the name of it, Mom?" And I said, "Well, it's Lessons from Last Time." I go, "Lindsay, they're actually asking me about my lessons, the ones I tell you all about." And she's like, "Mom, they're asking you. That's the difference." I'm like, "Ooh, touche, my friend, touche."
I'll give you one of my biggest wins when Dan, our head developer, called me, and he goes, it's like 2013 maybe. And he calls and he's like, "Hey, get your phone out. I want to show you something." And I could upload a video into the Coop from my phone. And I was like, "Oh, this is amazing." And he would just give me gifts like that. And so it felt like everything we're doing was radical and awesome and would help everybody. And so most of my big wins revolve around a moment where we released a technology that was awesome, or we did a policy writing boot camp because we found out companies didn't have policies. So we got them out to Hawaii and would just do a week with these compliance officers. And in mortgage, salespeople and CEOs and executives, they get these trips. But a compliance person saying, "Can I go to Hawaii?" is usually a hard pass, hard no. And so we would get compliance people out there and help them have fun while writing policy. So they were like things that we did that were super fun, but everything just feels like it was running forward. It was a lot of...
You were a startup all over again.
Yeah.
You were.
Yeah.
Even though you weren't, you were essentially a startup.
Totally.
Yeah. With all the energy required and all the excitement of, holy cow, this thing works.
Yeah.
And then you break it and you have to fix it and then it works again.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if there was a movie about my life, the window of 8 to 20 would be like me talking over, like I was doing a bunch of seminars, like me like flying through and speaking in all these crowds. And just getting paid to fly out there and speak. I will tell you to this day, when I go fly out and speak and come back through the Portland airport, my favorite airport in America, when I walk through the airport, a smile cracks every single time like I'm getting away with something. I get this smile like I just got paid to fly somewhere, have an amazing dinner, meet with amazing people, speak on stage for hours, and go back, and I got paid to do the best thing ever. Like, this is a privilege to be able to do those things. Okay, so you get out and now you're like, I get to go experience the world. Was there any fear in you, like, what if I go back? Or were you just like, no, like
Tons
I've
of
got
fear.
this? Okay.
Because everyone talks about that you'll go back.
Wow.
Mhm. Like even out the door, my landscape boss, it's so hard to leave everybody too. Like you want to leave, but you feel so bad. And so, I hear them like, Lashoberg, you hear that last voice, they're in the garden doing something. And I look back and he's like, "You'll be back." Everyone that looks back comes back. And I didn't think I was going to come back, but I always hear that for a little tiny technical violation, things like that, depending on who your PO is. And I never had a PO before, so I didn't know that they try to get you back.
Wow.
It's money. It's a business.
It's a business.
What a great
yeah.
message.
Yeah, most of them
See you
do.
soon.
Well, it's 70%. About up to 70% in 5 years go back.
70%?
70.
Oh my gosh.
And the person I was with went back for a bit. Yeah.
It's so much work.
Yeah.
I mean, you look back, like what it took to get there, even like running the 50-mile ultra marathon. I'd never run a marathon before. And I signed up for a 50-mile. I don't even like to drive 50 miles. And now I'm going to run 50 miles. And I remember when we bought the training plan, because you buy a training plan from a coach. We bought this training plan and he said, before you even start this training plan, you have to be at 30 miles a week of running. And I was like, 30 miles a week?
It's a marathon a week.
Who runs 30 miles a week?
More than a marathon a week. Yeah.
So literally I spent the entire summer getting my mileage up to 30 miles a week just so that we could start the training plan. And I just remember looking back on it now, like how absurd it sounded at the time. Like, what did I sign myself up for? What did I get in for? Like, I can't, if my friends thought I was absolutely insane, then they joined me.
I'm a fifth-generation homeowner. Homeownership has been a concrete foundation of our principles of our family growing up. So homeownership started with my great-great-great-grandfather. His name is Henderson Faribault. He was born enslaved, and by 9 years old, he was picking cottons in the field on a plantation in North Carolina. And after emancipation, he had recently been moved into the house as a house Negro, and he had learned how to cook. So after emancipation, he decided to go in town to the town of Hillsborough, North Carolina, and he worked for a few notable restaurants and really made a name for himself. And he became kind of obsessed with this idea of buying property, or so the story goes, according to my great grandmother, who has now since passed. Anyway, so he became totally obsessed with this idea of buying property. And when he died in 1902, he was 62 years old and he owned 50 acres of land, and he had left a home for each one of his 8 children. And so I am a direct descendant from that line. There's actually a street named after him now in Hillsborough, North Carolina.
Wow.
And one of the original chimneys from one of his original homes is still there as a historic preservation site. And there is a plaque in the park dedicated to our family. So that's kind of how home ownership has started in my personal line. So growing up, we were always taught, you get married, go to college, get married, buy a house, go to college, get married, buy a house.
So anyway, Ryan Grant's there. Keep going.
And Coach is up on stage and he says, I give, his mother had cancer, battled cancer. And he said, I give this medal to, once a year to someone who's fighting cancer.
Oh my gosh.
And so, like, what? Who else is here that's fighting cancer?
You're always thinking of others first.
What?
Yeah.
Who? And of course they sent my name and got me up on stage, and that was very emotional.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And having all those people in the room just clap for me.
Yeah, it means a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not alone. And that moment is one of those moments where you realize that all those years of making friends kind of works out for you, doesn't it? Jeez.
Wow.
Honestly, if I didn't stop and take breaks or escape for a weekend, and I still work when I'm on these trips, it's just like you have to wait 2 hours for your pre-approval letter. Just chill out. And I warn my clients, so don't be surprised. But it keeps me from getting burnout. It keeps me from thinking about work every waking hour and just burning out, because it forces me to stop. So especially like I just went through and did all the pinkest photos of the cherry blossoms. I'm out there every day. It doesn't last very long, but the cherry blossoms only look amazing for, a week or less, depending on the weather. And so I'm out there every morning and every evening. I mean, this year I didn't enter the park at all because it's closed. But, part of it was like out there, like, oh, does this security guard like photography or want me to die? So it was like a little bit of a gamble every time I was in the park this year, but whatever.
What can we take away from this for other people? So I want to start with the easy one. Parents of kids like you, when you were young, what can parents do if they've got a kid that's struggling through school? What could have been done for you that would make you kind of take different paths in life? How could your parents have done something different, or people around you? Is there any takeaways there?
I've never even thought about that. I mean, I just, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like I haven't thought about, I think my parents did the best they could, My dad's got his own issues. My mom's trying to hold together a family. Nobody really knows what they're doing. When you're a kid, you think your parents know what's going on, but you get older, you realize you guys were winging it, weren't you? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, my dad, he wasn't super supportive, but I don't know that was going to change anything. I don't think that those things that happened in my childhood led me necessarily to doing the things that I did. Like, I wish I had a better answer. Maybe I should think about it more, but I don't, although I can look at those things, I certainly don't think that my father, said things that he thought were going to push me in one direction or another. And I don't know that, and then I think the problem is you could take probably 50 or 100 or 2,000 kids and put them in my exact same situation, and they wouldn't have chosen the same path I took. So there's a hard, you know what I mean? Like there was something that I was partially predispositioned to make those decisions. Other kids might have said, well, I'm not going to try and impress my father. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. And I don't know how much of it was greed and how much of it was impressing my father and how much of it was adrenaline. And I'm sorry. That's a good question. I just don't have a good answer.
A retreat that I was at with my old coach, Tara, we had to bring a picture of our old selves and write letters to our old selves.
Oh no, I'm going to cry. That's such a big deal.
With the wrong hand, with like whatever hand you don't normally use. And so it looks like
What?
kids writing. It is amazing. It is an incredible experience.
I'm so going to do this.
It's really cool. But you can't write with, like, if you're right-handed, you
Right,
can't
you
write
gotta write with
right-handed.
the
You
other
have to do
hand.
your left hand because then you'll look like when you were a kid. Yeah.
How long is
she's
that
on
letter?
my phone. She's on my desk. Like that little girl who just thought she'd be married in the white picket fence and married forever and all these kids. That was my life.
Yeah.
So.
How long's the letter?
Just a page.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because your left hand was getting super sore.
Because it looks worse than.
Yeah, totally.
You're
like, I can't read it, but I remember I wrote some killer
like,
stuff.
how am I supposed to even hold a pen? I don't even know.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was a beautiful experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I would say. It's going to be okay.